who we serve, the perfect gentleman, never intruding, never just coming into our lives, always standing at the door to knock, but he's waiting on an invitation, and this song was really an invitation. Holy Spirit, you're welcome here. Come flood this place and fill the atmosphere, because we can't make it without him. We can't go without him. I think it was the Apostle Paul that said, it's in you that we live, that we move, and that we have our being. Aren't you glad to be in God's house on Wednesday night? We're making it count every time. Thank you, worship team. Beautiful songs, beautifully put together. Listen, let me make a couple of announcements quickly. Our ushers will be here at the front. If you have something to give, you're welcome to do that. We don't want to miss out giving you the opportunity to be able to give unto the Lord. But don't forget, this coming Sunday is Friend Day. Look, you can have a friend if you'll ask a friend to come. If you don't ask anybody to come, you won't have anyone. But it's pretty simple when you have Friend Day just to ask somebody, hey, listen, we're having Friend Day. I'm going to get in trouble if I don't get a friend. And I want you to go with me. And we'll go get a hamburger after it's over, or whatever you want to tell them. But you need to have a friend with you. This is their opportunity to be exposed to the wonderful presence of the Lord. The entire service is geared to our guests. I'll be preaching something that will be good for them and that will be helpful to them, and we want to be a blessing to them. So bring your friends. It's not going to hurt them. It's not going to be a bad experience. They're going to enjoy it every step of the way. So don't forget to make sure that you do that. And then also in the morning at 6:30, coffee and prayer right back here outside as people are going to be turning in. If you could today, before you go into work, you can stop in there. You can pray with people and help us out on that. 6:30 right here on these grounds. There's people going to be coming by, and we're going to be able to meet the need with them in prayer and believing God to do something good for them. We're going to allow our Anthem student ministry to make their way back to their place. City kids are going to be dismissed to their spot. And if you have something to give, you can give that unto the Lord. Move up a little closer if you will. It won't hurt you. It won't hurt you to sit by someone. I always like the idea that the city kids are always running to get there. Lord, let that jump on us, where we're always in a hurry to get to God's house. This is why you parents are tired, right? My grandsons are coming on spring break, I think a week or two from now, whenever it is. And they just get there just bubbling over with energy and excitement. They're at the happy house now. That's what we call it. That's what they call it. And started way back when we would tell them, when they would try to cry and stuff, we say, oh, you don't cry at the happy house. This is the happy house. Torrin has a different take on it. He tells people that happy house where the word known is not known. The word know is not known. Yeah, that's what he said. But Sister Macey came back and answered that. She said, oh, it's known. It's just not used. That's a bad thing. They come in with that burst of energy. They're so excited. They give out at the certain time of the night. Some of Navy, when he lays down to go to bed at night, he doesn't move from that spot. When you cover him up, that's the way he's going to be in the morning. He is completely exhausted, but he's used every bit of energy that he's had throughout the day, doing everything he could possibly do. He could tear up an anvil. And I'm glad that you're here with a little bit of energy. You got just a little bit left. Turn to somebody and say, I got just a little bit left. In a few days, we're going to be springing forward, which is something I never look forward to because it seems like we don't have an hour to waste or give that up. The fallback is really great. Oh, no, we got at night on Saturday night about 10 o'clock, you're thinking, it's only 9 o'clock. But then whenever, I think it's the 10th of March, when that time comes up and then Saturday evening, it's going to be 9 o'clock, you'll say, my Lord, it's already 10. Unless you're waking up after 12 o'clock and resetting your clocks and stuff, you already know that I've already lost that hour. Time is so precious. Tonight, I'm going to read several scriptures. It's not going to be that lengthy, but then I'm going to preach to you for just a few minutes, and I do want to help you tonight to have something to take back with you. Now, if you've never had anybody against you, if you've never had anybody talk badly about you on the job or at school or at college or wherever you might have been or have been before, or if you've never had anybody in your family, an extended family, that's never had anything but positive things to say about you, and you've never had anybody work against you, then this probably won't help you. But if that's the case, where you've never had this, you don't feel like this is something that you could use, I ask you to just tuck it away because you never know when you're going to need it. My dad has a philosophy and always has. Back many years ago, I don't know why they did this back then, but you could go into a restaurant. It didn't have to be something fancy, but when you get ready to check out, they didn't just have mints, but they usually had matches. You know, like the name of the restaurant, Whataburger or whatever it was. And my dad always would get that because it was free. And he'd have those piled up in his truck. I don't know if he was planning on starting a forest fire. I don't know really what, all just in case we need them, because we really didn't have any use for them at home. Nobody was smoking a pipe. Nobody, was lighting a lot of candles, but they were free, so we got them. And so I'm telling you this, and I know what he was thinking. Well, we're going to be out on the lease. We're going to start a fire, whatever. And that's all fine and good. But sometimes you just need to have things, not because you need it at that moment, but that you're going to need it at another moment. And I found that so true in my life that some things I think, well, that didn't really help me all that much. That must have not been for me. And 2 weeks can go by, and all of a sudden I realized that was for me. It was preparing me. So stand for just a minute. Psalms the 35th chapter. I'm going to try to read this quickly so you don't just give out on me. Psalms 35 and verse number 1. I'm going to read down to verse number 13. I'm going to do it quickly now. And I think we'll have it up there so you can follow along just a little bit. This is what David is praying for. Plead my cause, O Lord, with them that strive with me, and fight against them that fight against me. Sometimes we just want to say, well, the Lord can do whatever he's going to do. Well, here's this man after God's own heart. He's saying, God, you fight against them that's fighting against me. Take a hold of a shield and a buckler and stand up for my help. Draw out also the spear and stop the way against them that persecute me. Say unto my soul, I am thy salvation. He's wanting the Lord to tell him something. You ever have that where you just want a word from the Lord? You don't ever get one? No, I'm going to tell you, there's times I say, Lord, if I could just get some word, and I don't get any word. I've opened my Bible before trying to get a word. And when I open my Bible, I pray over my Bible, it just says, Hophni, we get Phinehas, and they had sons and daughters, and then they died. Well, that's a good word. All right, let them be confounded and put to shame that seek after my soul. Let them be turned back and brought to confusion that devise my hurt. Let them be as chaff before the wind, and let the angel of the Lord chase them. Let their way be dark and slippery, and let the angel of the Lord persecute them. For without cause have they hid for me their net in a pit, which without cause they have digged my soul. Or they had digged for my soul, that pit they have digged for my soul. Let destruction come upon him at unawares, and let his net that he had hid catch himself. Into that very destruction let him fall. And my soul shall be joyful in the Lord, and it shall rejoice in my salvation, or his salvation. All my bones shall say, Lord, who is like unto thee, which delivereth the poor from him that is too strong for him, yea, the poor and the needy from him that spoileth him. False witness shall rise up. They laid to my charge things I knew not. There can be people saying things about you, terrible things about you, but you don't even know it. Sometimes that's good, isn't it? Ignorance is bliss at certain times. They rewarded me evil for the good to the spoiling of my soul. Verse 13. But as for me, when they were sick, my clothing was sackcloth. I humbled my soul with fasting, and my prayers returned into my own bosom. I'm going to look at verse number 13. That's what I'm going to preach on for just a few minutes. But as for me, turn to somebody and say, but as for me. You can be seated. I'm just looking out there at you. Thank y'all. Thank you for being here. How many of you coming through some kind of traffic? If you ever drive Houston streets, there's traffic. Sometimes my app, what is it, Waze, it don't know what to do. You know? You put that in and, man, it starts down one way. Says, I think we're going the right way, and all of a sudden, rerouting. If you ever, Sister Macey was trying to be the navigator of the day, and we got over here on the toll road, and she doesn't have it set where, you know, it'll pay the toll, so it's constantly trying to get us off of the toll. You ever have that happen to you? It just kept saying, exit here and do the U-turn. Just keeps telling us over and over again. And I want to just say, hey, lady in there, whoever's directing this thing, obviously we're not going to make the U-turn. We passed 4 exits. We're going on. But that's what ends up happening. It starts moving you around, go over here, exit, get on this. And I don't know if you, all men here, maybe you'll identify with this, but if you're a man here, when they say the things that you need to do, don't tell me that there's not a moment that you don't think that's not the way. No. We can go right down here, I think, and turn back in here. I did that one day. And then you get down there, and the road is completely out, and they tore the bridge up. I've done that so many times. I know my wife always tells me, why don't we just trust what they say? Why are we putting it in if we can't trust it? That's kind of the way it is. When you get in Houston, there's going to always be something you have to encounter. But you're in the house of the Lord. Let's take something with us. Let's get something and go home with it. I believe that's what the Lord wants us to do. Now, the psalmist bemoans the condition that he's in. Now, people have wronged him. I'm not going to try to get you too active here, because I know right now just lifting your hand is a chore. But look, let me just ask you this. You can just nod your head. Have you ever been done wrong? Have you ever gotten your car fixed and they charged you, but they didn't fix it? That's one way. Nothing makes you madder than that, does it? Anybody ever done a repair at your house and it didn't work, and then they wouldn't come back and fix it? They wronged you. You ever had somebody on the job that seems to get it in for you and actually sets it up where, you know, we're going to be a little late, I'll cover for you. Then you find out they didn't really cover, they exposed you. Even though it was supposed to be something we were all going to do. But they use that as an opportunity to do you wrong. Listen, there's a bunch of that in this world. There's a bunch of it. You can sign contracts if you're a contractor. You can do all the right things, and still somebody turns around and tries to get back at you in some way. They do it over and over and over and over again. When you're a child of God, you can't go cuss somebody out. I mean, you're not supposed to go cuss somebody out. That's right. What do I do? What can I say? I mean, I've been very angry before. I didn't say anything. I didn't have bad words. And maybe sometimes, you know, they'll pop in from your old days. You just think them. You know, maybe sometimes you think if somebody will write down some bad words, I'll sign them. You know, but you don't have the opportunity to do that. You feel like, well, I've got to have the right spirit. You know, I've got to have the right heart. I've got to do the right thing. The psalmist, the man after God's own heart, he's telling the Lord, Lord, you fight for me. I'm not going to go knock their windows out of their vehicle because they didn't pay me for the repair. I'm not going to go and try to burn their house down because they did me wrong. I'm going to turn this over to you and ask you to fight the battle for me. Brother, when you get God engaged in the battle, it's just pretty much over with at that point. Sometimes I feel like this, but there's times I'm just a little bit reluctant, because if God ever gets on the warpath, ooh, You don't want that. I mean, waters come over you. Man, fire, brimstone fell from heaven when God got fed up with it. He created snakes to bite people. I mean, he did all kinds of things when God got fed up with stuff. And so I'm real reluctant to do that because I'm thinking, well, what if I ever do something wrong? I sure don't want that to happen to me. But the psalmist starts going down the line. He said, let them be confounded. Let them be put to shame. Let them turn back that has brought confusion and tried to devise my hurt. Believe it or not, we were singing about it tonight. The weapon that is, how was it that we were singing it? What was the lyrics? Yeah, what the enemy meant for evil, God did something. He turned it for good. But it starts off something about the weapon. Yeah, will not prosper. Yes, I think that's in the Bible. It is in the Bible. I remember one time, one of our ladies was fighting a battle with a husband that she had two children, very small children. She was trying to live right, do the right things. She's still in our church today. She's in Glacier de Royalwood. Her son's in our church now. And I mean, everything he could possibly do, he was doing. He continually took her to court. He was trying, when the kids would come over, he would try to get them to do wrong things. He was trying to get the girl to go in another direction. Now she's a pastor's daughter. But he was doing everything within his power. And so we were in a service one time, and she got up. I had her say something. She got up and she read that scripture, but it was in Spanish. And she said, it sounds a little different in Spanish than it does in English. We say no weapon formed against you shall prosper. But she said, actually, in Spanish it says no weapon forged against you shall prosper. And it was good, and we rejoiced, and that's true. No weapon forged against me is going to prosper. In other words, that husband's not going to be able to succeed in this, even though it was costing her money, and it looked like he was winning. Well, after the service was over, we had one of our guys in our church come up, and he said, man, I just couldn't hardly sit there when I heard what she said. And I said, what was it? He said, I've got this hobby where I'm interested in sword making. I mean, take a piece of steel and make a sword out of it. Now, thankfully, he didn't do anything wrong with it, but I was just thinking, what do you do with that? I feel as my hobby, I make guns or whatever. I don't know, whatever it was. And he said, I've been so intrigued by that because there's Damascus steel and all this stuff. It's a big deal. And he said, man, I'm so intrigued by that. But he said, I've been studying that, and I've got one that I've designed, and I've got a place where we're making that, and they show it, and it's collector's items and all of that. And it's just a great hobby. And he said, but when she said that, he said something just grabbed me. He said, she said, no weapon forged. And he said, Pastor, I know what's involved in forging. What starts off in the steel and the way the steel is heated and it's fashioned and how it's cooled and then it's heated again and the sharpening. When you forge something, he said, it takes a lot of work. And he said, what hit me was, the devil's been working on this hard, but it's still not going to prosper. Do you understand today when we sing like that, that thing you think is going to overtake you, the enemy's been working on it. He's working hard on it. He's given a lot of sweat and blood to try to bring it to pass. But it doesn't matter what he's doing. It's not going to prosper. My Lord have mercy. And you know what? The next time she went to court, thought it was going to draw out longer and longer. That same judge that they had been dealing with looked at that husband. He said, I want to tell you, I don't want to ever see you in here again. He said, you've been causing problems over and over again. I see what you're doing, and I'm telling you now, you better not ever do another thing because you show up in this court ever again, and I'm going to throw the book at you. She came home and was rejoicing. She had just testified of the fact that no weapon forged against her can prosper. And the psalmist said, they're making weapons against me. They're trying to come against me. He said, let their way be dark and slippery. Boy, that's something else, isn't it? I mean, he's talking up a whirlwind here. You know how we are, though. I mean, And we may say, I'll go beat the daylights out of him or something like that, and we feel like that's going to be the better thing. But it's a better thing if there is something that's happening, turn it over to the Lord. Now, I don't think he felt like the Lord was going to do all that, but I think he was giving the Lord some options. Lord, if you wonder what to do, I tell you what, make their way slippery and dark. I'll tell you that right now. I'll give you a few little tips here. And then, listen, they've been coming against me without cause. They've set a net over on a pit because they dig this down and they set a net over it and disguised it so that I'll stumble in it. Let them fall into that. He said, all my bones, at that moment, if you'll do that, all my bones will say, Lord, there's none like you. Boy, Lord, God, if you'll just go ahead and turn this thing around, there's nobody to be rejoicing more than me. I will rejoice, I will rejoice. I will rejoice in the Lord. I will do all these wonderful things. I can't go back and read them all. But then he said, let it be like chaff in the wind, and let the angel of the Lord chase them. Oh, my goodness gracious. Boy, that's tough stuff right there. I mean, I've been chased when I was riding my bike as a kid, chased by a dog, but I've never had an angel chase me, and I don't want to start it tonight. I mean, it's let them be confounded. Let them be put to shame. Let all this stuff happen. Let it be that what they're trying to set up would be their very destruction. He said, all my bones are going to praise the Lord. All the things that I'm going to do is going to be rejoicing in the Lord. See, all this stuff, when you read this, you can't even believe it's in the Bible. Because what our idea is that everything we do should be just saturated with mercy. Oh, they did me wrong. I'm supposed to turn the other cheek. I'm not supposed to hope that I can get out of this, even though they just keep on relentlessly, and they just never stop. They just continually try to get my job or trying to get slander my name, to try to do something to put me down, something to push me back. I'm not being able to get getting the advancement. I'm not being able to get the promotion because they try to figure out every way. Sometimes it's a supervisor. Sometimes it's somebody that just you can't figure it out. They just crossed up. It's just all the time. They're just you're crossed. There's something in you that they just don't like. You know, sometimes you encounter things where people have a spiritual problem with you. You know what I'm talking about here. Well, everybody else thinks I'm okay, but that person just seems to hate my guts. Well, sometimes it's a spiritual thing. Sometimes they don't like how you live. They don't like that you are living right. They don't like that you're not miserable like other people. They don't like it maybe because you don't play the game. You don't dance to that music. You don't do those things that they feel like that you need to do. And so every time there's an advancement, every time there's a promotion, you get overlooked because there's somebody in the background. There's nothing wrong with saying, God, handle that. I'm just asking you to take a hold of it. I don't have to give suggestions. I promise you, God has plenty of arrows in the quiver. I'm just saying, He got plenty of arrows in the quiver. You know, we're all so fragile. All it takes is just one little microscopic virus of some type, infection or something, we'd be flat on our back, couldn't even reach down and get a glass of water. I mean, you've seen this before. You know what I'm talking about. When you get really, really sick, you've had the flu or COVID or something, and you can't even take care of yourself because you're so weak, and you didn't know when it happened, and you don't know how you were exposed, and you didn't see it coming. You know, it wasn't like all of a sudden I saw this cloud and then I realized I got to get out of here. It wasn't anything you even knew. You never knew who you came in contact with that all of a sudden it happened. Listen, God's got plenty of weapons if He wants to bring somebody down. But I think sometimes we need to understand that there are times that you have to release that into the hands of the Lord. You have to. I told a guy one time that we were evangelizing. We had no money, and I pulled into this gas station, and gas was coming out, and I didn't know a lot about cars. I knew more about cars then than I do now, because back then you could actually open it up, and there's the fan, fan motor, and there's the compressor, there's the belts and all that. Now they have the serpentine belt, and my dad was trying to tell me, that he had some tools that he was going to keep because I'd sold him that Lexus, and And he was going to keep those tools just in case. And I said, well, what are you going to fix? And he said, well, in case I need to change the radiator hose. He was 90 then. Okay, yeah. I've been with Dad where he changed the radiator hose, where he got a ride to a place and they got a radiator hose, and I know how to put it on. I know how to put the clamps on, and some of you do too. But I watched my dad do that. But he was thinking he would do that. I said, Dad, come here a minute. So I opened the hood, opened the hood of the car, and I said, where's the radiator hose? And it was just solid plastic across there. I don't know how many screws you would have to undo to even get to a radiator hose or anything else. I don't even know if that car has a radiator. I mean, you can't see it. It's not just right there, you know. And he said, well, I got to know how to change the flat. I said, I don't want you to know how to change the flat. Let me just tell you, Dad, here's the way this works. You get a flat on the freeway. You drive wherever you need to go. Tear the rim up, tear the tire up. I don't care what you have to do. No 90-year-old man's going to pull over on an interstate and start trying to fool with a tire and lose your life over a brand new tire or whatever it takes to fix it. I said, don't you touch anything. And I said, if you have a car problem, we'll get a wrecker to come get you, and we'll pull that to someplace, and we'll get that fixed. I don't want you changing radio. And well, what about like if you threw a fan belt or something like that? I said, where is that in here? I don't even know if they run by belts. But really and truly, I don't really care. Just let them run. Just please work. That's all that's necessary. But listen, there's plenty of things that come along in your life. And I had this guy that this thing, the gas was leaking out. And so I looked down. I couldn't tell where it was coming from. And so he slid up underneath there. It was at a gas station. And he said, man, we were out of town. And he said, it's your fuel pump over here. He said, it's that gasket in there, that little sleeve. It's got a leak in it, and it's leaking gas. I said, okay. And he said, how much is it? Well, he told me what it was. We really didn't have the money, but it was like, we've got to go to the next place. So we got that fixed. And so we got down the road, and I was going to check it out. Well, when I opened the hood and looked down, because I could see the way this car was made, you could look right down there and see the fuel pump right there. And it had those hoses that came into it and the little clamps on the end of them. I realized that there was a new hose with new clamps, but that fuel pump was the exact same fuel pump. It was corroded, dirty, just like it would be if it was been under an engine there for a long, long time. I realized he didn't really change that at all. I paid money for a little piece of hose. That's where the problem was. So I went back to the place, and I said, hey, there's a problem here. And I told him what it was. I said, come over here, I'm going to show you right here. You can tell that it hadn't been touched. You can tell that's not a brand new fuel pump. It's not even a rebuilt fuel pump. I said, all that's been changed is that little hose right there. And he said, listen, if my mechanics say they changed it, they changed it. Now, right then, I wanted to say, Holy Ghost, if you'll just stay right here, we need to have another talk with this, because this is not going to go. I argued with him. I did everything I could possibly do. He said, I just have to go by my mechanics. If they tell me they've done it. And I said, well, let me tell you something, sir. If you can live with this, I can live without it. If you can live with doing someone wrong, then I promise you, I'm going to drive down the road and I'll live without it. But this is wrong. I wasn't going to lose my life over it, go to jail over him or anything else. But I know what it means when somebody does you wrong and they try to pretend that everything is just all right. It's hard to take when you've been done wrong. But what you can't do is take it in your hands. You got to be able to say, God, you handle that. If that's the way it's going to be, then I'll let you deal with that on your level the way you want to deal with it. But I'm asking you to deal with it. I'm asking you to do something. I'm asking you to not to let them keep me in the back of the line. He said, I want the Lord to plead my cause. I want him to stand up and be my help. You know, one place it said one time that when the Lord made bare his arm, I like that, figuratively speaking, he made bare his arm. I kind of take it as that this is when the chariot wheels fell off. That's what they were singing about, Miriam and her little choir. They were singing about the horse and the rider and how the chariot wheels fell off when the Lord made bare his arm. The way I took that is the Lord said, okay, Pharaoh's going to pursue them, and I've been giving him all the chances I'm going to give him, and he just started rolling his sleeves up. I'm fixing to handle this right now. And when he started rolling up his sleeves, chariot wheels started falling off. He never got really to the battle. He just made bare his arm. That's the kind of God you're serving. We're not serving the God that gets down in the rough and gets down in the dirt with the enemy. He's defeated him long ago. All he's going to do is make bare his arm. I pray many times, awake, awake, put on thy strength, O arm of the Lord. That's what the prophet prayed. Awake, awake, put on your strength, O arm of the Lord. And when the Lord puts on his strength, he doesn't have to grab anything. He doesn't have to unscrew chariot wheels. He just shows his arm, and that thing starts happening. And that's what we want to happen. Pray that God will vindicate you. Yeah. Man, all those verses. Now, there's many more verses for this. I'm not going to get into this because you're going to think, that's just too violent. It's just too violent. You know, I don't understand this, but, you know, nowadays, people worry about all. I guess I'm the only person that's worried about violence in our world, but it seems there's plenty of it to go around. I don't think we ever wake up any day in the city of Houston that a bunch of people hadn't been shot, even in a church just a couple of weekends ago. I don't think we have any, I don't think we, after a while, you almost become callous to it. Oh, okay. Yeah, there's drive-by shooting. Okay, there was apartment murder, suicide. I mean, it doesn't take long. It keeps popping up on my feed, and it's like, how many? Oh, it's just 4 this time. How is this going on? The violence of it all. And then people said, oh, the violence. Well, they're not worried about what's being on the movies. They don't worry about what's happening. They don't worry about all that kind of stuff. But what we need to be interested in is not how violent we can be with somebody, but realize that the violent take it by force. Not talking about go get it out of their hand and yank it out of their purse or pull it out of their, or go to the boss and complain about them or fight fire with fire, as you heard people say. But what that means is when you get down and get along with God, then you take that by force. You tell the Lord, I'm not taking no for an answer. I've been walking with you. I've been living for you. I've been serving you. And I'm just telling you, I'm giving this to you, and you know how to handle this. Oh, I got to hurry because I'm talking up a big violent storm here. I can feel that feeling. Somebody was telling me just a few days ago, might have been the Grandquist, we were talking, and they were talking about, well, it was actually the Lakewood shooting and that sort of thing. And they said all these people came and they all had weapons. And somebody said, well, didn't they realize that this is Texas? I mean, people have guns. Since I've been pastoring here, men pulled in with guns on a rifle rack. Anybody ever see that years ago? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. They had fewer drive-bys and fewer road rages. You remember that? Nobody really raged then because there they were hanging right there. My goodness. Whew. Yeah. Man, in Texas, people have guns. They have a lot of guns. And they will use guns. It's just part of the culture. And I think it was a Grandquist that said, you know, people think that in California, they think that Texas people have tied down 6-shooters. I said, we may have some that do that. I've had to, in the altar, I've had to pull people's coat down because I could see that, man. I could grab that right here and do damage, you know, pull that coat down. It wasn't because the flesh was showing. It was like, you know, well, okay, pull that down. Oh, my Lord, have mercy, Jesus. That violence, God forbid that we would ever have something like that where that would even be needed. But in the violence we're talking about, it's not the violence by going against people and using those kind of weapons. If those weapons that are formed against us can't prosper, then the weapons of our warfare cannot be carnal. But they have to be mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. But that doesn't mean that you're timid when you come up and ask God to handle a situation. Listen, this is the psalmist David that was always compassionate and merciful and kind and caring and a man after God's own heart. But he got so sick of what was going on behind the scenes that he said, God, I'm telling you, they're setting a place for me. They're trying to trip me up. They're trying to do harm to me. Let them fall into that. Turn that around on them. You ever want that to happen sometime? Oh, yes, you do. Oh, yeah. I know you're saying, well, not me. Oh, I know. You can put up, you can put that all on. You can have the Patty Pentecostal and all that where, I don't do anything. I wouldn't want to do anything to anybody. You let somebody fool with your kids and let's see where you are. Let's see how excellent your spirit is. I mean that. I've seen that many, many times. Yeah. Not just the corrected city kids or the Anthem kids or whatever. I've seen people, you talking about getting their dander up. Man, they get their dander up because they don't think their kids do wrong. Even at school now, if you notice that teachers are scared because, they're going to be sued and the parents are going to come down. They never believe, that the kids ever done anything wrong. My kids never had a chance because, and some of you were raised like this. I say they didn't have a chance. I feel like we did as good as we could with raising them up. But when they came home, and if they dared tell me that they had to go to the principal's office or they got in trouble, I didn't go down and say, I'm going to tear that school down. I'm going to get on Oprah, and I'm going to tell them how bad it is. I'm going to get on the news. I'm going to try to get people. We're going to start a GoFundMe page, and we're going to try to do everything because they've been coming against my child. They knew better than to tell me they'd gotten in trouble. Because I know whenever I got home, I used to sign my own progress reports when I was in school. If you've never done that, please don't disregard what I'm saying. But because I knew that if I got home with that progress report and I was making an F in something and my dad saw it, he wouldn't say, that teacher's never liked you. And parents, let me just give you a little dose of reality here. When you think your kid doesn't do anything wrong, you just remember this. You live with them. They may sass from time to time. That's a word people don't hear much. They may talk back. Well, they have their opinion. I'm trying to give it. No. That doesn't work. See, that's talking back. If you ask for an opinion, okay, but don't just say, I don't believe that you should have done that. No, we can't. You can't be telling me what we do. Understand, we're the parent, you're the child. This is the way this works here. And so, a guy down the street from me, I ran with Tim Munson, his dad, would say this, if I want to hear from you, if I want your opinion, I'll knock it out of you. That's what he always told us. He never did that, but it was just the way they talk. And I'm not trying to say have violence or anything like that. I'm just trying to tell you, sometimes we handle those situations and we think everything's going to be sweet and kind and gentle and everything, and I would love for it to be that way. But you realize you encounter things that are not handled gently. Sometimes you got to rise up. Sometimes you got to stand up. I remember this. We were talking just a few days ago about Tina Smith, and back then, she was Tina Fleming, Ricky Fleming, who pastors in Eufaula, Oklahoma. He was one of the guys in the choir. Sister Macey was leading the choir. She always had these guys that got in trouble. They was always being funny. Ricky was one of those. I hate to throw anybody under the bus. I don't see them here. You won't say anything, will you? P.J. Dial, Donnie Dial, Brandon Macey, Ricky. And one night, they had just almost taken over the choir practice. It was youth choir practice. And so when Sister Macey got home, she called Tina and told her. And Ricky said later on, he said, she never got me a chance to even explain. Said she had the belt, and she came in whipping. That's what he said. Now, Brandon can tell you what happened. He kind of exaggerates this. But he came home, and Sister Macey made him go tell me what he had done. See, I know, I live with him, so I know he's capable of some things. And he had that little hat on, little ball cap. And I grabbed that hat, I threw it down, I stomped on it. I said, you think you're cute. He can tell you. He embellishes it, though. If you ever hear the story, just knock a third off of it or so. But I was so upset. You can be quiet for just a little while. And if I didn't sign my note and it said, has a U back then, you unsatisfactory, in conduct, Dad, I would say, Dad, math is hard and this is hard and all that. He said, but a stupid person can be quiet. I mean, how do you argue with it? It's true. But I'm saying to you that in this day and hour that we're living in, you do encounter things that are working against you. If it's a system, if it's a circumstance, you need to tell the Lord, God, you handle this. And this is what I'm going to end with right here. Verse number 13. He's telling them what's going to happen. He's telling them, Lord, take care of this. Lord, I want you to do this to them because this is what all they're doing to me. Man, he just named all the things that they were doing. Now, I've never had anybody do all these things. I mean, this is bad stuff here. I mean, I would have run as far as I could get away from somebody like this. But then this is what he said that I want you to get. But he said, but as for me, what am I going to do? Now, listen carefully to this. You cannot be responsible for what people are doing to you. If it's a spouse, if it's a relative, because everybody in there has some crazy person in their family. Is it somebody that always likes the drama and just spends their life trying to bring division? You may have somebody in your life like that. You may even have a friend that's toxic and you're trying to be a friend, but yet they're causing difficulty over and over and over and over again. And even they do things that you realize, that hurt me. You shouldn't have said that to me. I don't know why you do that. I'm trying to be a friend to you. Listen, you don't have control over things that are always done to you. But where you are in control is what you do with what's done to you. What you do with what is done to you. And that's why he turned that back and he said, but as for me, God, I'm asking you to take care of these things. But you know what he said? He said, but as for me, when they were sick, I didn't say good. I didn't say pour it on them. Y'all listen to this. Now, this is tough to do. When they were sick, my clothing was sackcloth. I actually prayed for them. I said, I don't want them to die with COVID. My clothing was sackcloth. I humbled my soul with fasting. And my prayers returned into my own bosom. In other words, I was just taking this into myself. And he said, I behaved myself as though he had been my friend or a brother. I bowed down heavily as one that mourneth for his mother. Brother, I don't know how he did that. But I can't get away from that part of, but as for me. What did he do? Now, I know you say, what does it say? Pray for them and you can heap coals of fire on their head, You know how that is? Well, I'm going to pray because I want those fires to get on their head. Singe their hair, burn them up, whatever it needs to be done. See, that's easy to pray that kind of prayer. But he was telling the Lord, Lord, I need you to do this. I'm not retaliating. I'm not hitting them. I'm not being ugly to them. This is what they're doing. I'm telling you, if you want something that you can do, I'll give you some suggestions. Let the pit that they're digging, let them fall into that pit. The things that they're saying, let it turn back to them. Let the wind come and blow that away as chaff. Don't let that be affected on me. Don't let it hurt me. Don't let it come to me. But now as for me, how I'm going to act, boy, this is hard when I read this. There's times I don't want to act like this. If you say you always do, then you've already gone to glory and you're just walking around here with a glorified body because you still have human traits and you're still in the flesh and you're still, well, I'm pretty spiritual, I'm really walking in the Shekinah. Well, the priests did too when they got in the tabernacle in the wilderness. They walked around and the Shekinah glory of God filled the place. It was beautiful. But they looked down and on the floor was just pure dirt. And they walked around in dirt while the gold and precious things in the Shekinah was all around their head, but on their feet was just the dirt because God wanted them to be reminded you're on the earth. I don't care how high you get. I don't care how spiritual you are. You're still on the earth. You still got these things to deal with. You're still walking in an earthly tabernacle. I don't know how he handled that. I don't know exactly what he did, but he changed the whole direction and he said this, but as for me, I'm going to do this. If they get bad, if they get down, I'm going to lift them up. I'm going to do this. He said, I behaved myself as like I was their friend. But in my adversity, they may have rejoiced. This is what he said. They gathered themselves together. Yea, they object, gathering themselves together against me. And I didn't even know they were doing it. They did tear me, and they didn't cease. With hypocritical mockings and feasts, they gnashed upon me with their teeth. These are things going on that he knows about. Somebody's reported it. But then he said, I've got stuff that they're doing that I don't even know anything about. I can't control them. I can't answer their questions. I can't do anything. But as for me, here's what I'm going to do. And I'm here to tell you today, God turned it around. I know that it's hard to pray for those that despitefully use you. I know that. There's been people that's done me wrong, and I'd pray for everybody, and their name would keep coming up, and I'd just say, well, not now. You know. We had a situation with one of our girls where she was put in a horrible situation. Molestation took place. I found out about it. At the time, she wasn't going to our church. When I found out about it, and the family told me about it, I was so upset. I wept when they told me. I couldn't hardly control myself. I was so upset. I wasn't there. I couldn't have done anything about it. But I was just one of my girls. I dedicated them. What can be done? Felt helpless. And I said, when I finally got my composure and I was talking to those family members, I said, well, I know at some point I will have to forgive that wrongdoing, but I don't think it can be today. I'm not saying that's an example to be. I was just talking about in my own self, honestly and truthfully. I finally did get through that, but I just didn't think I could just snap and, well, you know, I needed to work that through. I needed to pray about it. I needed to pray for the person. I needed to be able to get my head wrapped around how this could even happen. And I had to go through all of that until some of those that were connected with the situation, I even grieved for things that they had to go through because of that. Because in those kind of things, nobody's winning. Nobody is the victor. It's not victim and then victor. It's victim all the way across the board. Family members are affected, and it just goes on and on and on. But I'm telling you that to tell you that sometimes you got to work through that. Sometimes you got to go through that. Sometimes you got to have that situation so you'll find out what's in you to be able to forgive somebody. I didn't forgive them that day, and it was a few days. I don't know. I wasn't counting it. But I was driving along one day, and their name came up. You can stand. And I was going to start praying for them, and man, I didn't think I could. You know, get them, Jesus, you know, or I don't know what I was going to say. And I said, God, in spite of the evil, they must be saved. I may not be able to even talk to them if I saw them on the street, but I got to somehow release the feeling of vengeance that belongs to the Lord. And I got to be able to say, as for me, I can't read you all the scripture, but it's over in Joshua. He said, if you do this and you serve the God of the Amalekites and you serve the God before the flood, he said, this is what's going to happen to you. But then he said, but as for me and my house, I can't control everybody. I can't control circumstances. But as for me, we're going to serve the Lord. God bless you. Thank you for being in God's house. Make up your mind right now. As for you and your family, you're going to have a good spirit, attitude. You're going to pray together, and let's believe God for greater things. We'll see you Sunday morning. Don't forget Friend Day. God bless you.